welcome to this edition of the Spartan Sports Report here on TV3. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. As you can see, our guest is an old favorite of ours, Brent Duncan, who is Athletic Director at CHS. Welcome, Brent.
Thanks, Fran. Glad to be here.
We got a big thing coming up this weekend, but let's talk a little bit about the girls. They did well in the sectional gymnastics team.
Yeah, they did. This Saturday we had the gymnastics sectional hosted at Spartan Bowl, and our girls won another title. And I can't remember. Joanne told me yesterday how many it was, but I just don't remember.
19, I think.
Is that what I wrote it somewhere, and I just couldn't remember off the top of my head. So that's quite a few. And you know, we got Kyle Elman led us in the overall, and then we also had a couple of freshmen and a sophomore kind of help out, and Whitney Owens and Caitlin Burse. And, you know, in gymnastics, it just takes three to make a good team. You don't have to have, not that the other girls didn't help, but those are our three predominant big scorers on the team.
They did real well. 102 was the score, and we had Joanne on one of our shows earlier. She said 120, I think, is the perfect score, didn't she, Sam?
I think
120
so.
points, so 102, that's...
Yeah, you know, they measure down to the thousands of a point. So it's it started as hundreds when my daughter, then it went to before my daughter, and then it was into the thousands. So who knows when it's going to dip down into the tens of thousands in point system, just to help break ties and those type of things. But it's a good win for them.
They move on to the regional at Columbus?
Yeah, it's different this year. The regional in the past has been on a Friday night. In case you don't know much about gymnastics, there's not many teams left in the state that actually have gymnastics, and it's getting fewer and fewer. And we're down to actually only, I believe, 6 sectionals in the state, and there is none south of Columbus, and there's only 3 regionals in the state. So they'll travel to Columbus Saturday morning and start competing at 11. March-ins at 10:50, and they'll leave town about 6:30 to get down there and do all the warm-ups. Start about 8:55, and it takes a couple hours to get warmed up, and then Katie bar the door.
Wish them the
it's
best
a good
of
time.
luck.
So.
Yes.
Joanne has built a dynasty here, really, with 19 sectional wins, 3 state championships, and we know that's been a while ago, but still, when you talk about gymnastics, I think around the state, people think Connersville.
Well, I think they're one of the few, the names that are out there constantly. You think of Connersville, Valpo, Dwenger. I'm sure I'm missing some, Concordia, and New Palatine's have been really good. Richmond had a real strong program for a long time, and they're kind of down, but it's one of those dying things. But if you're not a big gymnast, and of course, my background with my daughter being a gymnast, I know a lot of the ins and outs. So it's a fun sport to watch, even if you don't have your kid competing, because knowing what they go through to get to do some of the tricks that they can do, I don't think people realize how much body strength and training it takes to get to those levels. And just to knock on wood, injuries and those things are few and far between, because it is a dangerous sport. But
why do you think that it has declined?
Well, I think for some places it's just expensive, and I know the last time that if you know anything about Joanne, she does anything in her life about gymnastics. So I don't know if you saw the old movie Teachers. There's a guy named Ditto that died in his classroom. I said, Joanne, don't take this wrong, but I think this is probably your resting place right here on Arians Avenue in this gym. She says, you might be right, but she sold Dippin' Dots a few years ago, if you remember, at the Spartan Bowl, and it was about $23,000 worth to buy that new floor. So I think it's just the expense, and then to really be good at it, you got to train. Of course, now there's so many little gyms around, in Indianapolis and those areas where girls go and do those level 9s and level 8s and go through that route. But I don't know if it's just the expense or just the amount of time it takes to be really good at it.
Dedication.
Because of body. You can't just take time off and expect to come back and be able to do what you do from the time you left.
When we had Joanne on, Fran and I talked to her about, it's one of the favorite sports in the Olympics that many people, me included, really enjoy watching men's and women's gymnastics.
Well, I mean, you look at what they do with themselves, and it's them. Whatever it is, they're flying off the rings or the high bar if you're a guy, and the strength that they have, and imagine putting yourself in an L seat sitting up or a plank sitting up on those rings and holding your body straight out parallel to the ground, and it's phenomenal what those people. And I've seen even my wife and my daughter at times sit in an L seat and grab the rope and just pull themselves up to the ceiling just by using their arms. So I don't know if they can still do that today, but I couldn't sit down on the ground and just pull myself up and keep my legs straight out. So there's a lot of respect for how much training it takes to get to that caliber. Because for us, the last Olympics, we had a couple of gymnasts from Indiana that were solid on the team. Sam Chesrick and Bridget Sloan, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
She felt one of the factors was the lack of coaches. She felt that was.
Well, I know it's getting harder. There's a surrounding school that actually had some girls that wanted to do a gymnastics team. They couldn't find a qualified coach to be a coach, so they didn't have a team this year. Although they had the girls, they didn't have a parent willing to get the training to do it, and then they couldn't find anybody to take the place of. So unfortunately for those girls, they didn't get a chance to compete this year. So
Sectional coming up starts Tuesday night at Newcastle.
tough one. It's an exciting one.
Spartans will play later Friday.
That's correct. We'll play the winner of the Greenfield-Richmond game from tomorrow night. I hope we have a great crowd. We've sold quite a few all-tournament tickets. I'd say about 150 pre-sale, which is probably more this year than I've had in the last 4 years put together. But I got at least 150 more sitting in my office, so for $10, it's a cheap show for 2 nights. So come out to the athletic office and pick up your tickets.
It's a wide open sectional.
Yeah, I would say it's wide open. You know, you look at Richmond and you look at Pendleton; they have the two worst records overall. And I cheated and I printed them off so I wouldn't forget because I couldn't get them from the top of my head. But when you talk about them, Pendleton has a record of 13-10 and Richmond's 10-14. But Pendleton's schedule is the 38th toughest in the state and Richmond's the 52nd toughest in the state. So it's not like they're playing easy competition overall. So. But as you look at the ratings, our sectional is rated the 4th toughest sectional in the state based on winning percentages. So the Tech sectional in Indianapolis obviously is the strongest one, and then our winning percent for our sectional as a collective group is 68% of the games we've won as the 6 teams, and we've had 96 wins or 95 wins and 44 losses combined in the sectional over our opponents. So
everybody has a winning record, but Richmond, they're 11-14, I think right now. Greenfield Central, 19-4, one of those 4 losses to the Spartans.
Yeah, and that's what you kind of worry about. You know, we get the winner of the Richmond-Greenfield game, and we've both put them down one time. So there's a little added incentive. However, I will at least say they weren't blowouts. They were our dog fights. So I would think our kids and Coach Brown will understand. And if the kids don't, Coach Brown will make sure the kids understand that we just didn't walk over there and kick them very hard. So,
but they also understand that they can beat them.
Correct. You know, so it's just a matter of getting them in the right spot. And it seems like in the 7 years Kerry's been here, it's just he's always had our teams peaking pretty much at the right time. And so let's hope that trend continues. And I didn't just jinx him. So,
well, we've seen him before he came here, being a tournament coach and winning 3 in a row, and 1 or 2 of those he wasn't supposed to probably.
No, you thought we might have won those. So, but he's done a great job with our kids. You know, they all the kids on the team have bought in. They know what's expected, and I can't remember who I was talking to after we just beat Northeastern the other night, and they overheard him saying the huddle right at the end of the 4th quarter. I think, Bo had just hit the shot to go up 8 right before the end of the 4th quarter, or beginning of the 4th quarter. And I think I'm most positive he said, boys, all we need is layups and free throws. And our kids are disciplined enough and understand what he wants, that if that's all he wants, that's all we're going to get. So, and that's a plus for us. And, a benefit that we have 4 or 5 kids that can put the ball in the basket, and you just can't focus on 1 or 2 players to take those out of the game. So.
And he's a coach that gets his point across I never hear him raise his voice.
No, if you ever come to the sideline,
he's very, very mild-mannered, very calm, but when he means business too. You can see it in his face.
Well, I think your kids take on those characteristics of your coach after being in that business for 20-some years and being with a variety of styles of coaches over those 20 years between Bullington and Renner and Hetty and Klein. There's a different style of all of those, but I'm truly a believer that they take on the demeanor of your coach, and he doesn't rant and rave, and he'll get his point across the official, but you may not even know he's talking to the official. It's pretty subtle, and there's never any hands thrown up over his head or stomping down the floor or any of those things. So, but I think that pays off in the long run with your kids. So,
watching this group of boys, it's apparent that they're very close. I mean, they really like each other, I think it shows.
Yeah, I mean, I don't stick around. I don't see a lot of practices, but I've been there enough to know that being a player myself and on teams that they don't like to leave the locker room real fast. So you usually know that you got a pretty close-knit kids, because when they don't like each other, they get in, they get out, and they're gone. And these guys just want to hang around. And that's always a good sign that they get along with each other. And,
Yes.
And that makes a little bit more cohesiveness with the group. So if you ever, after the ball games, they're lingering in the hallway and their families are talking. And of course, I also know that winning breeds a lot of that happiness too. So it could be totally different. But I don't think it would be even if we were 5-19 at this time.
Yeah, we won 19 ball games. 7 of those were Eastern Indiana Athletic Conference games. We have a trophy. I guess there's room for a sectional trophy.
Oh, there's plenty of room for sectional trophy. And the ultimate goal is, somebody asked me when we put the bowl floor in, if we're going to change the design on the floor. And I kind of said, well, I kind of like it. It looks like a normal basketball floor without all the hoop ball all over. But the only thing I want to change is the number in the middle. So
There's room for another.
There'd be room for another number.
number.
That's the ultimate goal of every team when you start the season. And now you get a chance to see if you can make that come true.
Well, Kerry often says the season is just the warm-up for the tournament.
Well, I think if you can get our schedule ever tweaked where we'd want it, you get to play. I think ideally in time, you get all your sectional opponents in the beginning. You do all your conference games towards the end, so you're playing for something at the end. But you've already seen your sectional team, so now you can prepare the rest of the season. Even though you're playing your games, you're not trying to win them, but you also think about what I need to do to beat the Richmonds or to beat the Pendletons or what, and you practice that all year long. And then when it gets tournament time, you've kind of played for a conference title at the end to get that feeling of winning, and then we're getting there. We just don't have it tweaked where we want it yet, but we're working on it.
Quite a feat, though, going undefeated in the conference. And many think of it as a football conference, but I think it's a pretty good basketball conference too. Especially when you look at just recently Greensburg with back-to-back state championships in 3A, and of course we know Rushville's always competitive, and Batesville and East Central down a little bit this year, but they'll come roaring back.
Oh, and a lot of them are young, and you go down the list, and of course South Dearborn's been down for a little bit longer. But we'd not played Lawrenceburg a lot, but they got a new younger guy, I believe, and I thought they played really well against us down at their place. Even though we ended up stretching the lead out, I didn't see anything. But Eric Ebrons, the new head coach at Franklin County, was an assistant coach at Disbro at East Central for many years. So their discipline is going to come back at Franklin County, and he'll turn that program back around. And of course, Dave's down a little bit at East Central, but his kids always play hard and disciplined, and very similar to Kerry, just patient and hardworking, and get your nose to the grindstone and let's push it. But yeah, it's great. I mean, what did we go, 6-1 last year and 7-0 this year? So we're 13 out of our last 14. And I kind of figured up of our conference opponents. We went to overtime with Rushville, and they got in the 40s. 2 of them, the next 2 got in the 30s, and 4 of them we held to the 20s, and it wasn't like we were stalling. So I think we gave up an average of about 31 points a game in the conference. So I think you can win a lot of ball games if you can hold people to 31 points in a varsity basketball contest. So
absolutely. I mean, their average is around 40, I think.
Yeah, and it's a different 40 this year because, last year we intentionally held the ball down a little bit. We didn't have quite as many people that could score. This year we've been 80s and 60s and 70s, but we're still keeping our defensive average down. And, as Kerry and I go way back. We've had college classes together at Ball State a long time ago, so we've known each other for probably close to 30 years. And I remember when Howard Renner was here just talking to me about basketball defense and how he gets so much. If you remember Howard, he got a lot out of that group of, get beat by Anderson, who's ranked number 5 in the country, by 2 in the regional. But spent a lot of time talking with Howard, and if you know anything about Howard, he's a basketball motion man, defensive guy. And I think Kerry understands that, defense is where it's at.
In tournament play, the last sectional win was in
96, 97.
97. So what do we look at, 19 years?
Yeah, and I've had some comments about that the last few weeks, and I said what people fail to remember is the day of that small class sectional where you just automatically won, and now you're playing the Richmonds and the Newcastles and the Mount Vernons and the Pendletons in your sectional, Andersons and Muncie Central. Those used to be your regional and semi-state teams. And now they're your own sectional opponents. And so I went back and looked. Since that time, we haven't won since 97. Greenfield's not won since 98. Of course, they weren't always in our class. They weren't always in our sectional. 97 and 98, Greenfield's not won since 98. 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 Greenfield's not besides Richmond winning the last 2 years, they hadn't won since '96 until the last 2 years. So, you know, and then of course Pendleton's won a couple, but they weren't always in our class either. And Mount Vernon's just kind of getting going and have come around up to the bigger size schools.
Well, in '97 we beat Rushville, Hagerstown, and Cambridge City in the sectional. Lost to Batesville in the regional. Class basketball wasn't around then, was it?
No, that's the last year of.
That was the last year of single.
Okay.
Single class, and what a regional that was. When at Chrysler Fieldhouse there were standing room only. They estimated about 11,000 people.
It was packed.
Chicago Tribune, New York Times, big time media outlets there because they knew it was the end of an era.
I see.
And they came to see, and at that time it was Connersville, Newcastle, Winchester, and Batesville, as I recall. What ended up being two 2A schools in that regional, and both of them competing very well, Winchester and Batesville, and I believe Batesville lost to Newcastle in the championship game on a clock that maybe didn't start quite in time.
So there's some strange things at times. Yes. But you just go back, forever, just in the competition and the thrill of being able to play everybody. I don't know that I'm a class basketball fan, but I think you sometimes tell that small school you can't compete with the big school. And I don't always think that. I mean, I was at Knox High School when Argus ran through there, or I was in high school when Argus, and then Oregon Davis went through a long run, and they're a single A probably size-wise, and they started 6'9", 6'9", 6'7", 6'6", and 6'5". That's their starting lineup, and there are 125 kids in the boys or whatever it is. So
during that same time period, Lagodi was
Jack
always
Lagodi.
Yeah, was always ranked up in the top 10 every year, top 10 overall.
Yeah,
that's right.
And they're not a very large school at all. So, but it is what it is. It's probably not ever going to go back. And
no, I don't.
It'd be harder to change back than it was to get it changed forward.
It's still fun.
It is. And I'm glad they got rid of the championship series at the end, because now you got 4 state champions and all of a sudden 3 of you are going to get beat. So that was kind of tough. So I don't know how I'd feel if I'd won the state championship and then the next weekend you lost.
Okay, in high school and in college for you, as you prepared for our tournament, what was going through your head as a player? Tell us, what are your feelings? What do you think our kids are feeling right now as they get ready for Friday night?
Well, I don't know. I think it's changed so much. I just know when I walked in the locker room, it was pretty much silent, and I'm not inside. And that just might be me. Maybe I was just only silent in my own brain, and everybody else really wasn't. But I've seen different things out of different kids. Some kids want to have their beats in, their headsets going, and some kids are by themselves. And I'm sure at some point in time, Carrie tells them there's a time where all that stuff goes away and it's a focus. And I know that's how it was with some of the coaches. They had a little bit of freedom, and then at a certain time, or maybe when you come back to get dressed for the game, then it's your business. And I don't know that you can be business the whole time sitting down there watching a JV game. And of course, when you go to sectional, it's different now because there is no pre-act.
Sure.
We're going to be the opening act on Friday night. So a little change of philosophy maybe of how you prepare yourself.
How do you motivate yourself? What do you do? What happens inside of you?
Well, I don't know. For me, it's just I was asked if I let my daughter win at games, and I said we play games that she rolls the dice and moves the peg. She beats me. She beats me. So for me, there was no reason to get my competitive juices on because they were just there. And I think so many of those kids that have that. I mean, I really think if you can't motivate yourself from inside, I don't know what outside is going to motivate you. It's just, for me, it's that my will to win was greater than my desire not to lose was greater than my will to win. So I just can't stand losing.
Have you seen a more unselfish bunch than these guys? When you look at, you got 3 guys averaging just under 12 points a game. You got another one just under 10. I see them liking to have an assist as much as having points.
Well, I think that's why they're having the success. The extra pass. I got a good shot, but he's got a little bit better shot. And I think in the big scheme of things, the last time I really noticed that was probably way back to when Ron Spurlock and Joe Newman or Brian Munchell and Jared Vance, they were that same mold. I'll give you the extra pass, and I don't really care who scores. And I think that's truly prevalent on our team is I don't think they really care who puts the ball in the basket as long as it goes in. You know, it's just like the other night when Garrett figured out he could go by the kids in the Northeastern out front, and they're athletic. I mean, you don't find too many kids that are 6'2" and 6'7". The Smith boys, they're players.
They were good.
They're not like they're just some rum-dum school from Fountain City. They're not ranked 2A and 2A for no reason. But, you know, there are times when you see that, like Garrett, that's I can get you a basket, but he's not necessarily going in to score. He's willing to kick it out, and they're all willing to. Sometimes I almost think they're too selfish, but that's me. So, but it's nice to have that when they don't care, when the goal is to win, and they're all into that boat at the same time, rowing the same oars, going the same direction.
They've really been a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully, they got several games left in them.
Well, that's what I hope. I think over the time carries, each year you saw that get a little bit better as far as the camaraderie, where we're headed, what we're trying to get done, and each year I know we've lost some kids here and there along the way, and for whatever reason, some of it's personality conflict, some of it's I just don't want to work that hard, but you see the kids who are there have bought in, and you can see that they're just, each year they've gotten a little bit better, a little bit better. We've gotten a little bit stronger, a little bit physical, and shooting has become better, and you know, and some of it's just the time the kids are willing to put in to make that happen as well. So,
since we played at Newcastle, we don't get a session to practice, right? Is that the IHSA rule?
Yeah, they started that a few years ago. I remember as a player getting out at middle of the day to drive to Marion High School to practice in the Bill Green Arena. Of course, it wasn't Bill Green Arena then, but that was part of the fun for me. You got to miss school, you got to go out to eat. And I love school, don't get me wrong, but that was just something a little special where everybody got to go practice. Now, if you've played there during the season, and for me, that takes away a little bit of that mystique about the tournament time. You know, and I'll use Union County for a great example. A couple of years where they came to the 2A regional, I realized they played in the bowl November 23rd. It's now March the 2nd, so it's been 5 months since they've stepped on that floor. So part of that experience, now that used to be true at the regional level too. Now that's changed. Anybody in the regional can go practice even if you played there, but it used to not be that way. So, you know, I think it takes away a little bit of the prestige of just being in the tournament. And some coaches don't really want to go and take that extra day out to drive, and you get an hour and a half on the floor, and you try to give them a lot of time to shoot. But, you know, some places are unique, like Newcastle. When you're shooting there and it's empty, it's a little different feeling trying to shoot at the goals when there's 9,000 empty seats sitting behind you.
And people can say, well, you know, it's the same design as the bowl and all that. The floor is different.
Totally.
It has that parquet floor. It's got a lot of bounce to it. It's not nearly as solid as the Spartan Bowl floor, just with colors and all that. Yeah, it's
the depth in the background and the 6 rows extra at the top. And I found out earlier when we were at the sectional meeting, maybe talking a couple weeks ago, that they didn't take the tartan floor that was underneath of it out. They couldn't. So something to do with they wasn't able to get rid of it or something. So they just laid it over the top. So it's got even probably a little more sponge to it than. If you remember,
it was probably glued down and couldn't get it up.
If you remember, I used to have green inside the lane when they first put that in, and they couldn't keep the paint because the board's bouncing so much. It kept chipping it out. So they took the green out of the paint.
Well, you can feel it when I sit down there on press row that a player comes by, and you can actually see the table where we sit move.
Yeah, there's I've noticed some kids in our past that couldn't dunk in Spartan Bowl, and Lord knows for 58 years that one rim is a little bit short, but it's not anymore. But they could definitely dunk at Newcastle, but they couldn't dunk in the Spartan Bowl. So
how much shorter was that rim?
I will not say. It was shorter. And I don't know how it ever got that way. I mean, they've been there forever, so I don't. You know, we have those turnbuckles that can pull them up, so I don't know.
I think Howard lowered it.
Well, we had a few people dunk on it, so it could be bent, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
we might run through the pairings. Tuesday night, Richmond and Greenfield Central in the first game, Pendleton Heights and Newcastle in the second. On Friday night, the Spartans will be taking on the winner of the game one, as you mentioned, Richmond or Greenfield Central. Mount Vernon will be playing the winner of game two. So those are the pairings. That will be 7:30 Saturday night for the championship, and the winner Saturday night goes to Southport, right?
Yeah, it's not like you're walking into a nice regional if you win it. I mean, it's going to be one of the better ones in the state, too. I haven't really looked at all the teams that can feed in there, but I know the Indianapolis regional we had, too, is always a tough one. So you'll have Pike or somebody from that side coming in. And I don't know, if you're a basketball junkie like I am, it's a great tournament if you don't have a dog in the fight. Unfortunately, we got a dog in the fight.
Hopefully.
We want to keep that dog in there, but I think my wife and my grandkid and I are going to go up, watch tomorrow night just because I think they're going to be two great basketball games. And
Oh, I think so.
you know, for $10, you come to the office and get your ticket. You can go see 3 great nights of basketball and 7. I think are going to be 7 outstanding basketball games.
It's only a half hour away.
You can stop and eat along the way. Stop on town and eat on the way.
The Spartans in Greenfield Central have the best records. They've each won 19 ball games. Are they the favorites?
Well, if you look at if you're a big guy and you look at John Harrell's site, no, Mount Vernon's the favorite. They've been playing really well, and but you know, you never know. I think we're the favorite, but you know, that's my gut feeling.
Sure.
But no, according to some of the people, Mount Vernon is the
And
favorite.
then we're next, I think.
Mount Vernon and us. I think they got Mount Vernon 48% picking them and about 26% picking us. And I'd take us down in the finals and see what we can happen.
The favorite always doesn't win.
No, that's true. That's true.
All right.
I think we've been favored in a few before, and we come up on the short end of the stick. So
Yes. Yes.
that's why you play the game, I guess.
What about some other sports coming up here? Spring sports right around the corner.
Well, actually, track has their first indoor meet this coming Saturday. It's East Central. It's all the conference schools have an indoor track meet this coming Saturday. Then softball actually starts practice March 7th, and then the rest of the sports start practice March 14th, which is hard to believe it's 2 weeks away.
Sure is.
So,
What are you expecting? What teams look good? Baseball?
well, I think baseball has a solid foundation coming back. Of course, obviously, we lost Jordan Clark in the pitching staff.
Yes.
But I think there's some young kids that'll step in. Jacob Doherty had a pretty good year as a junior, and there are other kids who can throw. And Jordan's little brother Nathan's out there, and I'm not sure exactly who's all he's going to try to stick up on the mound and let the ball fly. But I think they'll be good. Softball's young. Coach Ellis has done a good job the last couple of years with him. We do have a young lady coming in that has thrown the ball at, if you know, softball at 61 mile an hour, which is humming it. So
Yes.
no, I don't think they throw that consistently, but they've hit that on the jugs gun. So, and she's a freshman this year. It's actually Coach Ellis's daughter, and
Good.
so if you got a good pitcher in softball, you can win a lot of ball games. So, you know, track is. You just never know. We got a lot of quality kids coming back from last year, and Coach House and Coach Cooley they've been outside. It's been a unique situation. They've been outside every day. He says if it's not snowing and raining, we're going out. And they used to spend a lot of time in my hallway running up and down and around the steps, and I've not seen them in there. They've been down. They could actually start practice about a week and a half ago, and they've been outside ever since, unless it's just been too cold or rainy. And
Jeff was on and told us we had 109.
well, I think they counted 120 the other day, but you never know how many of those will stick it out or filter off.
Sure.
And then, of course, golf is. We lost some seniors, and we had about 3 or 4 returning. So I know our coach will be out recruiting to. We have a golf call-out meeting this coming Thursday. We actually had girls tennis call-out meeting day, and there's probably 40 girls on the tennis list. And Coach Dirks has done a super job with the tennis girls. So. It'll all be rolling before long, and before next thing I know, we'll be hosting the boys' track section and the girls' track section, and we'll be thinking about fall and football already. So it's amazing how fast it goes.
And football, August 19th, Richmond.
Yep, right in there. So we'll
5
be
home
playing.
games this year.
6 if you count our scrimmage. You know, but I don't know if you count a scrimmage. But the scrimmage will also be here this year with Monrovia. And Monrovia did they win the state title this year? They were in the semi-state last year, and I think they won the state title this year in 2A football. So it's a nice little team coming in.
Brent, thanks a lot. Bring home a winner Saturday.
I'm going to hopefully bring in a trophy back. That'd be outstanding. I'll put that in the car and we'll bring it in.
I'm sure Sam joins me in wishing the Spartans the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Fran and Sam.
Thanks, everybody, for watching Spartans Report for this week here on TV3.